dad, when I was a kid, always told me to keep a journal as I was kind of growing through my career. And there were a few reasons that he wanted me to do it. First was this notion that perspective has an expiration date. He wanted me to keep a journal when I was a busboy, and then when I was a server, and then when I was a manager, and then a general manager, and then an owner, to maintain the perspective that I had in those roles. Because as much as people try to hold on to the perspectives they have had in the past such that they can have greater empathy as a leader in the future, it's not possible. Every time I've promoted someone from a server to a manager, for the first couple months, they have this amazing ability to empathize with the people they're managing, but eventually they start thinking like a manager, which is completely reasonable. He always told me that if I was able to capture my perspective as I grew through my career in a journal, that I'd be able to tap back into that perspective and be a better leader. Once I got to owning my own company, if I'm being honest, I stopped keeping a journal. And I missed the idea of memorializing my thoughts and allowing them to make me better, as well as giving me the ability to tap back into them. And so I wanted to write a book. COVID gave me the space and the time to do that. And as I was writing it, I quickly started to feel that my real reason for writing it was because I believe that in a career in restaurants, I've learned a lot through my own experiences or the mentors I've been able to work with or for, um, about leadership and service when approached through the lens of hospitality. And I believe, especially right now, whether it's in how divided the world seems to be or coming out of COVID, where so many people felt such a loss of connection to people, places, things, that those lessons could materially help a lot of other people, whether in their personal lives or in other industries. Because I have this genuine belief system that more businesses should make the choice to be in the hospitality industry. And I think the lessons I've learned could really help people do that. My dad taught me a lot about being intentional. And if there's one word that's probably the through line of the entire book outside of hospitality, it is that. It's being intentional in pursuit of everything. And in many cases in this book, it's being intentional in pursuit of relationships. And my dad did have this requirement to be intentional because my mother was a quadriplegic growing up, and my dad was in the restaurant business, and he had a son to raise. And the only way he was able to be a good husband to her and a good father to me and a good president of the company that he was working for was to be intentional about how he used every hour of his day. I don't know that I have a requirement that feels, well, if I do, it feels not as significant when I compare it to his. But I think watching him, his requirement to be intentional gave me the gift of knowing how valuable it can be to be intentional. I do know that if I want to be a good father and still achieve meaningful success in my career, I do need to be very intentional about the choices I make, the things I say yes to, the things I say no to, when I turn my computer on, when I turn it off. Because hospitality is about relationships. Being intentional in pursuit of those relationships is everything. And probably the relationship that I want to be the most intentional pursuing is the one with my kid. This one applies to both leadership and service, which is the power of being vulnerable. Um, I don't believe that two people have the capacity to connect unless they both have their guards down. And one of the best ways to get people to relax is to lead with vulnerability. I'll give you an example. We were debuting this new menu at our restaurant where I wanted it to really be a dialogue between us and the guest, where they weren't just ordering things off the menu, but we would begin the experience by seeing what they were allergic to, but also, was there anything they didn't like or anything they just weren't in the mood to eat that night? I wanted to be unreasonable in how much we contoured the experience to their preferences. And it was a Herculean lift to get to the point where our kitchen was prepared to do that. And when we started it, it almost didn't work at all. Because nowadays it's kind of cool to like every ingredient. And no one in the dining room felt confident enough to share with us the things they didn't like. Until one night I took the floor and I was waiting on tables myself to figure out what wasn't going right. And finally, by the fifth table, I said, "Hey, is there anything you don't like? Is there anything you're just not in the mood to eat tonight?" And again, crickets. Until I said, "Let me tell you a secret. I hate sea urchin and I don't like oysters." Now, is that being vulnerable? Well, in my world, it is. You're supposed to like sea urchin and oysters. And the moment I said that, they finally opened up and responded in kind. And the guy said, "I don't like celery," and the woman didn't like beets, something like that. My point is, once I offered up a piece of myself, they were willing to offer up a piece of themselves as well. And in leadership, if you can't get people to let their guard down to the point where they're opening up to you, where they're sharing things about themselves that will give you a heightened ability to serve and lead them, I think you're holding yourself back. So being vulnerable is a really, really big one. I also think the idea that one size fits one is a really important guiding principle that I've used again in how I serve people and how I lead them. It could apply to how you deliver service and hospitality to your customers, which is to contour the experience to the person that they are. But as a leader, it means that you need to manage people not as just another number on your team, but as individuals, getting to know them and tailoring your approach to how you lead them in a specific way that will be most effective, most investing, um, most loving to them. The rule of 95/5 was something I came up with that I really do believe was a huge part of our evolution over the years. And what it means is manage your money like a crazy person 95% of the time, so that 5% of the time you can spend foolishly. And I put foolishly in quotes because it's actually not foolishly at all. It's with great intention. I believe that that 5% where you overspend is where you can create the kind of lasting memories that help give people a strong connection to your brand. That's not just your customers, it's also your team. Um, Examples are in managing the team, you manage overtime, you manage turnover, you manage costs of disposables and chemicals and payroll and everything, where you care about every single penny. And then when it comes time to throw a party for your team, when it comes time to bring people together such that they can stop being a collection of individuals and actually come together as a trusting team, that's when you spend more. That's when you go a little bit overboard. It's important to make certain moments significant, to bring a few inflection points to the experience of working there or interacting with the brand as a customer. In our service, that 5% did a ton of the heavy lifting. We actually added positions to our team called Dreamweavers, people who are responsible as we served people dinner to help members of the team come up with extraordinary gestures of hospitality, of over the top, unreasonable hospitality. And I'll give you some examples. But one night, a family of four from Spain was in our dining room when the most beautiful thing happened. The kids were looking at our massive windows with wonder because it had started snowing and it was the first time they'd seen real snow. So we sent the Dreamweavers out to find a store that was somehow still open at 8 o'clock on a Friday night selling sleds. And when those guests left, they were greeted by a chauffeur driven SUV to take them to Central Park for a really special nightcap, a night of sledding. Now, that is that 5% at work, right? Like, I couldn't have earned the ability to spend money on those sleds had I not been managing my money so effectively the other 95% of the time. But that 5%, some people might think it's wasteful, but I guarantee you that that family of four has told that story so many times and has driven so many other people into our restaurant that I can't imagine an investment um, that that is worth making more. The thing I'm most proud of is creating a culture in the restaurant where everyone on the dining room team felt empowered, felt that they had opportunities or even perhaps opportunities to go above and beyond for the people they were serving. The moment you invite your team to bring their creativity to the experience they're delivering is the moment they become so much more willing to work hard to make sure that experience is great. Because now they have creative autonomy. They're not just helping to realize someone else's vision, or in our case, serve plates of food that someone else had created. They have creative agency. When you do that kind of thing, you're effectively taking salespeople and turning them into product designers. And I've never met anyone that won't sell something with more passion once they have had the ability to help design it. When you create a culture where the team has the permission and the structure and the resources to be generous, it becomes a really, really great culture. And as our entire team found themselves so quickly addicted to the idea of going above and beyond for our guests, we all found ourselves doing that for one another as well. And so, yeah, I think the tradition I'm most proud of is that we were able to create a culture where people had the permission and then were celebrated for being created and how they were showing generosity to others. It was exciting, right? They weren't just doing the same thing day in and day out. It's much more fulfilling when you actually get to bring some of your own intellect and creativity and your brain to the job. Another way of saying that is take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. And I think that is one of the most fundamental rules of unreasonable hospitality. Because too often in customer service organizations, we let our self imposed standards stand in the way of us giving people the thing they actually want, both our customers and the people that work with us. I think so many companies spend so long building these perfectly manicured brands, and those brands end up becoming handcuffs. People spend way too much time doubting their instincts by saying, wait, is that part of our brand? And in doing that, they actually get in the way of connecting with people in the way that would feel most connective to those people. One of the things that really unlocked this whole philosophy for me was serving a dirty water hot dog from a street cart to one of our tables in the middle of their 4-star meal because I overheard them talking about it. Which in my world, serving street food at a 4-star restaurant is sacrilegious. But the way it made them feel showed me how important it is to, no matter how good you get at the thing that you're doing, no matter how seriously you take your work, to never let yourself take, to never let you take yourself so seriously that you impede your ability to very, very thoughtfully serve other people. And I think that applies to any customer service business. I created an organization, and it took me years to get here, where every single person that joined our team started at the very bottom of the organization, and we had a pure promote from within culture. Um, with that being the foundation I was operating from, we never hired people based on their experience. I believed that I could teach people the things they needed to know to enter into our organization, and then over time, they would learn the things they needed to grow. I was simply looking for people that I trusted, people that had integrity, people that were passionate, that would work as hard as I wanted to work to help our company achieve its goals, both our outward facing goals and our inward facing goals. Now, I also understand that that doesn't apply to all jobs. There are certain jobs where when you're hiring someone, you need them to have the experience to do that job well. That said, one of the things I found is so many job postings, they put such an unrealistic list of expectations on that posting that they weed out the person that could probably be best suited to take that job, because we need to be looking for connection over perfection. The advice I give to people as they're trying to hire into roles is be very, very disciplined in terms of what experience you need someone to have. I want always to have a culture where people are given trust and agency and empowerment. I think it's everything. And it's required if you want to have a team of people that will give as much of themselves to the work as you need them to accomplish something amazing. And it's required if you ever want to be in a scenario where people bring their most fully realized selves to the work. At the same time, I'm a perfectionist. I am. I've struggled with it my entire life. If my wife makes the bed, I remake it. If she parks the car crooked, I'll repark it. And when you're a perfectionist, it's hard to trust people because people are inherently imperfect and they're going to make mistakes. I think the only real advice I can give is to say you need to be self-aware enough to know when you've kind of fallen off the path. You need to have the kind of relationship such that when you're not self-aware enough to realize that, someone else is there to tell you that you have. And when those things happen, have the confidence to acknowledge the mistake and right the ship. Acknowledging the mistake is perhaps the most important thing, because when you do make a mistake, when you are so controlling that you take away some of the trust that you want to give to your team, acknowledging that to the team is one of the best things a leader can do, because I believe in normalizing feedback and creating a culture where people are excited not only to be praised, but also to receive criticism. But there's no one you will be more inclined to receive criticism from than someone who's willing to also criticize themselves. And so acknowledging your mistake and righting the ship is a pretty cool way to handle those moments where you weren't the best version of yourself. And then every time it happens, try to make sure you learn something from it so that over the course of your career, you just get a little bit better at it every single year. I believe this is the premise of the book, that America was a manufacturing economy, then it became a service economy, and dramatically so. More than three-quarters of our GDP is driven by service industries. But I believe we're becoming a hospitality economy, especially after the couple years that we've just had. People are craving connection now more than ever. Making good products is no longer enough. Serving them efficiently is no longer enough. It's how people are made to feel that's starting to matter most of all. And it doesn't matter how well you're doing financially right now. Once your competitor starts to put that idea at the center of every decision, they will pull ahead. But so one reason is, well, if you don't do it now, someone else is going to start doing it and you're going to lose your market share. And so maybe you're doing well now, but if you don't think with a long-term perspective, it will come back to haunt you. The other reason to do it is it just feels better. If you create a culture of hospitality, not only for the people that you're serving, but also the people you work with, turnover goes down, retention goes up. I believe people that you're serving start to develop more significant connections to your company, and the lifetime of a customer relationship becomes longer. But it also just feels good making other people happy. It's energizing. And during a time when so many people are struggling to create the kind of cultures where people are inclined to want to stay there for years, the team and the customers, hospitality is the answer.